Hi, my name is Antonio Rayo. My mission is to provide the world's best free resource on how any business owner in any industry can grow their business without getting a loan. And today, I will be discussing the problem with being an expert in your industry, business, or market. Now, to begin, I want to start off with a story. Actually, a doctoral dissertation of a Stanford student named Elizabeth Newton in the 1990s. Now, this doctoral dissertation is called The Rocky Road from Actions to Intentions, and in this essay, Elizabeth conducted a study where she had a group of Stanford students. She split them up into two groups. One group was considered the tappers, and one group was considered the listeners. Now, the group of tappers received a list of 25 songs, extremely well known songs, and that she told the tappers to select 3 songs out of that list. Now, what she did was she said, okay, well, I want you to select 3 songs. They selected the 3 songs, each one of them individually, and she paired each tapper with a listener. Now, she had the tappers guess, based off these 3 songs that are highly known by everybody. You're seeing them right here. You selected them. I want you to guess, when you tap these songs out with your fingers, that's what she had them do, tap them out with their fingers. When you do that to a listener, how likely do you think the listener is to guess the correct song? And the tappers predicted that, of course their ranges varied, but overall, on average, the tappers predicted that the average listener would be able to predict the song they tapped 50% of the time. So that's the study. They have a tapper, so we have a tapper and a listener. The tapper taps a well-known song, and the listener is trying to guess that song. Now, like I said, they guessed the tapper with the knowledge that of the music of the song that they chose. They said, okay, well, the listener is probably going to predict it 50% of the time. So what happened? They do this experiment. The tapper taps out the song. I'll do an example right now. I'm going to tap out a song, and let's see if you can guess it. Okay, so that was basically an example of Elizabeth's study. And right there, I tapped out "Happy Birthday," and that's what happened. The tappers tapped out a song, listeners guessed. And so what happened after this happened? Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Is after executing the experiment, Elizabeth concluded that the tappers got their message across 1 out of every 40 tries. So out of all the tries that the tappers tapped out their song, a listener was able to identify the song 1 out of every 40 tries, a success ratio of 2.5%. And that's, as you could tell, very different from the 50% the tappers predicted. These Stanford kids predicted 50% of the time the listeners would be able to guess the song. But in reality, only 2.5% of the time they were able to guess it. So why is this the case? And this is the case because the tappers knew which song was being tapped. So they had a super easy time identifying it. Like when I tapped out "Happy Birthday" right now, it was super easy for me to identify that I was tapping out "Happy Birthday" because I knew the song I was tapping out. So, because the tappers knew the song they were tapping, they struggled to accurately predict the perspective of the listeners who didn't have the same knowledge as they did. The listeners didn't get to look at that list of 25 songs. They didn't get to choose the songs. So therefore, they didn't have the same knowledge as the tappers did. And that's where, the difference between what the tappers expected versus reality is at, because they didn't expect it. And this is known as the curse of knowledge. Essentially, it's a cognitive bias that states that once we know something, we find it hard to imagine not knowing it. So we assume everyone else knows it. So, is this curse of knowledge prominent within business? And the answer is yes. And I'm going to share with you a very prominent example of this happening. So in the 1930s, Schlitz beer had a problem. They're about the 8th largest beer manufacturer in the United States. And they were basically in a screaming competition with everyone else. Everyone was talking about how pure their beer was, and Schlitz was no different. They were saying the same thing: our beer is pure, and that really got them to 8th in the. They couldn't really grow much further than that. So what they decided to do was they decided to get this guy named Claude Hopkins to help them grow their business. And what Claude Hopkins did is, of course, Claude Hopkins is an advertising man, so he doesn't know about the beer industry. So Schlitz beer is walking him around the beer manufacturing facility, And Claude Hopkins is super amazed by, the way Schlitz beer makes their beer. He's amazed at it. He says, this is wonderful. You guys should really tell people how you make your beer. But Schlitz was like, why are we going to tell people how we make our beer? It's not, who cares? Like, everyone makes their beer this way because everyone made the beer the same way as Schlitz. But what Claude Hopkins understood was, hey, the people of America, the people that drink your beer, have no idea about this. So what if everyone else makes beer the same way? What you need to understand is the people that are drinking your beer don't understand this. And that's, where the curse of knowledge hit Schlitz. So Schlitz Beer decided to eventually listen to Claude and tell people how they made their beer. And what happened? Schlitz Beer went from being the 8th largest beer company in the country to being the largest beer company in the country in just a few short months. So as you can see here in this example, the curse of knowledge is here. So we have Schlitz Beer's knowledge is extremely high. Schlitz Beer knows everything about beer. They know how to make it. They know how to sell it. They know how to test it. They know how to take out bad beer. They know how to make the best beer. And over here we have Schlitz Beer, the Schlitz Beer customer's knowledge about beer. And basically, Schlitz Beer was assuming that its clients knew more about beer than they actually did. So they were communicating to them as if they already knew this about beer. But Claude Hopkins understood that, hey, these people, your audience, the people that are actually drinking your beer, don't know as much as you think they do. And that's why you're struggling. So when he was able to help lift the curse from Schlitz Beer and help them market better and more effectively to their audience, they reaped great rewards because now they were speaking to their clients, at their level. They understood Claude Hopkins understood what the average person understood about beer. And when he was able to market to that level of knowledge that the average consumer had, they were able to rapidly grow the business. So my point here is assumptions are made and most assumptions are wrong. Albert Einstein said this, and this is a wonderful quote. And if Albert Einstein said it, then it has to be true. So are you making a Schlitz mistake? Are you assuming your prospects know more than they do about your business, industry, product, or service? If you are, this can result in your prospects feeling confused and uninterested as a result. Or, could you actually be doing the exact opposite of the curse of knowledge? Could you be assuming that your prospects know less than they do about your business, industry, product, or service? And this can result in your prospects feeling bored and uninterested as well. But in reality, most likely, if you're suffering from the curse of knowledge, you're assuming that your prospects know more than they do, not less than they do. Most likely, most businesses struggle with this. Since, you're an expert in your field, you consume, everything. You consume your industry constantly. 24/7, you're being involved with, the vocabulary that an expert would talk in. The way you guys, think about your industry, the way you guys, act in your industry. But your clients, they don't think the same way as you do. And that's the struggle. That's where the gap is. You're thinking super highly in your industry, but your clients don't. So that way, when you communicate to them and you try to market to them, that's where, you could be struggling and not being able to get your message across. Like I said, they could be confused and uninterested as a result. So 2 ways to ensure you're not a victim of the curse of knowledge. Number 1 is to consult an outside perspective, Consult somebody like Schlitz Beer did. They consulted Claude Hopkins, and he went in there with like a blank slate, and he was able to identify, hey, this is something that your people do not know. You guys could change your marketing by doing this and see great results. And your second option to ensure you're not a victim of the curse of knowledge is to interview basically everybody. Interview current prospects that didn't convert, past/inactive clients, current clients. All these people to understand what is their current understanding or what was their current understanding before they made a purchasing decision. Because once you know what their base level, your average client's base level of knowledge about your industry or your business or service is, you could then reverse engineer from where you want them to be to where they currently are at. Say you want them to understand, X, Y, and Z about your product or service. And at the current moment, they don't understand those 3 things. But when you're able to identify what they currently know, you're able to reverse engineer what you want them to know to what they currently know and help them make those connections better. You know, it's kind of like setting goals. If you want to get to China, it helps to know where you're currently at. You know, if you're already, somewhere close to China, you could probably hop in a car and drive there. But say if you're in the United States, you're gonna have to decide, hey, I'm gonna have to hop on a plane to get there. So when so there's like two parts to setting a goal: figuring out where you're currently at and figuring out where you want to go, and that helps with marketing to your clients as well. So yeah, that's the lesson today. Don't suffer from the curse of knowledge. Just be aware that, hey, since you're an expert in your field, there might be things that come so close, that become so obvious to you because you're such an expert in your field, that are not obvious to other people that don't have the same knowledge as you. So once you're able to understand that and truly internalize it, you'll start communicating better with your prospects, and really just overall in general. If you're the head CEO of your company, same thing with your employees. Your employees might not understand everything that you understand because you're operating off of different knowledge than they are. You have more experience than they do. So something that comes as easy, something that comes super easy to you might be, a huge thought for them. So that's the lesson of today, and hopefully you find it helpful. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, as always, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at FAQ@AntonioArroyo.com or at 510-556-3775. Thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.